Hello everyone, myself Dr. Laxmidhar Behera from Regional Institute of Education, NCERT Bhubaneswar, along with National Resource Center for Education, Central University of South Bihar, welcome you in this course Latest Trends in Pedagogy and Assessment. I hope you will enjoy this learning of different perspectives during the course. Let us start the discussion with two different classroom situations. So here is situation 1. When Mr. Amar, a teacher, takes a class, he narrates, explains different concepts and ideas. He asks questions to selected few students. All the efforts are mainly directed on completing the lesson and course in the due time. Therefore, he finds little time to take care of individual needs and interests of students. The students are observed to be passive listener to the teacher. Mr. Amar tries to maintain discipline in the class so that he could go on uninterrupted in his teaching. His efforts for making the class interesting to the students are limited as he is constrained by time. At the end of the teaching the lesson, he asks 2 or 3 questions for evaluating students' learning. Here is another situation. When Miss Sarita takes a bioscience class at secondary level, she does different activities. So here are some activities. She is not reading the text. She is dividing the whole class into 4-5 groups. She uses different learning resources, taking the students' cognition and interest into account. She asks students to bring plant and observe it in each group. She encourages them to learn and discuss about the plant in detail group wise. She facilitates group discussion and ensures participation of each student. She gives opportunity to students to explore and utilize their rich experiences. She asks each and every student to draw and label a picture of a plant in their notebook. She was asking each and every student to share their work and promoting discussions and reflection among students. The past situation is an example of teacher-centered classroom, where the second one is a learner-centered situation and the teacher, Miss Sarita, is a facilitator than a traditional teacher and demonstrated different roles to play. We see a shift of the focus from the teacher to the learners. In learner-centered learning, learners' needs, preferences, learning styles, skills and experiences are taken into consideration in the learning process. Students need a more individualized way of learner-centered learning, fitting their personal learning styles. In learner-centered learning and teaching methods, we see a shift of the focus of the activities from the teacher to the learners. Learner-centered pedagogy is thus the need of the hour. I would like to share my ideas on learner-centered pedagogy in 2 sessions. In the session 1, it is understanding learner-centered pedagogy. The session shall focus on understanding meaning of learner-centered pedagogy, characteristics, rationale, and the strategy of learner-centered pedagogy. Whereas the second session focuses on different strategies of learner-centered pedagogy. So let us start with the session 1, that is understanding learner-centered pedagogy. What is the tenet of student-centered learning? As we think about pedagogy, we have different assumptions in our mind, like no 2 students are alike, no 2 students learn in the same or identical way. An enriched environment for the one student is not necessarily enriched for another student. In the classroom, we should teach students to think for themselves. Different theories of learning have proposed different perspectives on the process of learning. Behaviorists viewed the environment as the single most important key to successful learning. Environmental factors provided the external stimuli to the learning, and the consequential behavior that resulted was deemed the response. Stimulus response, which is called SR, become the formula for teaching in these early years of educational practice that found its place in educational practice up to 1950s. The learner is passive, responding to the environmental stimuli. Behavior is shaped through positive or negative reinforcement immediately after a behavior, which increases the probability that the behavior will happen again. Constructivist learning is an active process of constructing knowledge based on personal experiences in a specific context. Learners continuously test these hypotheses through social negotiation and bring past experiences and cultural factors to any situation. As defined by Vygotsky in the year 1978, learning occurs within the zone of proximal development, which is the distance between a student's ability and to perform a task under adult guidance or with collaboration and student's ability to solve the problem independently. We have gone from simple cause and effect understandings of the education to more intricate theories that address the complexities of how learners participate in the process of making meaning. The constructivist theory focuses more on learner centered pedagogy. Let us examine the four tenets of student centered learning. Firstly, learning is personalized. Learning is competency based. Learning happens anytime, anywhere. Students take ownership over their learning. Let us discuss all these points. Learning is personalized. Personalized learning recognizes that students engage in learning in different ways and in different places. Students benefit from individually paced, targeted learning tasks that start from the student's current position, formatively assesses skills and knowledge, which provide ample, frequent, actionable feedback from multiple sources, and addresses the student's needs and interests. Tasks and learning units might be either individual or collective. Learning is defined and reinforced through participation in collaborative group work, focused on engaging and increasingly complex and authentic problems and projects, as well as those relationships and community structures in the larger learning environment beyond the classroom itself. Secondly, learning is competency based. Students move ahead when they have demonstrated mastery of content, not when they have reached a certain bar day or met the required hours in a classroom. Students have multiple means and opportunities to demonstrate. Mastery through performance based and other assessments has been done. Thirdly, learning happens anytime, anywhere. Learning takes place during and beyond the traditional school day and even the school year. The school's walls are permeable. Learning is not restricted to the classroom or the building. Time and place are used flexibly in ways that optimize and extend student learning and that allow educators to engage in reflection and planning of activities. Students have equitable opportunities to take advantage of digital technologies that can enhance learning, and they can receive credit for learning they do outside the school system based upon demonstration of skills and knowledges. Fourthly, students take ownership over their learning. Student-centered pedagogy engages students in their own success and incorporates their interests and skills into the learning processes. They gain a clear understanding of what they have mastered, set goals for what they need to know and master long range, determine what they need to master short term to reach their long term goals, and receive frequent feedback from teachers. They use data to diagnose, direct, and drive their learning. They have multiple opportunities to direct, reflect, and improve on their own learning through formative assessments and data reports that help them understand their own strengths and learning challenges. Students take increasing responsibility for their own learning using strategies for self regulation and reflection. Students support one another, progress, and celebrate their success. Children are naturally motivated to learn and are capable of learning. Making meaning and developing the capacity for abstract thinking, reflection, and work are the most important aspects of learning. The National Curriculum Framework 2005, while focusing on the learner's context, emphasized that the children learn in a variety of ways through experience, making and doing things, experimentation, reading, discussion, asking, listening, thinking, and reflecting, and expressing oneself in speech, movement, or writing, both individually and with others. They require opportunities of all these kinds in course of their development. Teaching sometime before the child is cognitively ready takes away from learning it at a later stage. Children may remember many facts, but they may not understand them or be able to relate them to the world around them. Learning takes place both within the school and outside the school system. Learning is enriched if the two arenas interact with each other. Art and work provide opportunities for the holistic learning that is rich, intact, and aesthetic components. Such experiences are essential for linguistically known things. There is a range of schools, both private and government, catering to different socioeconomic groups. Learning must be paced so that it always and allows learners to engage with concept and deepen understanding rather than remembering only to forget after examinations. At the same time, learning must provide variety and challenge and be interesting and engaging. Boredom is a sign that the task may have become mechanically repetitive for the child and little cognitive value. Learning can take place with or without mediation. In the case of the latter, the social context and interactions, especially with those who are capable, provide avenues for learners to work at cognitive levels above their level. And let us discuss about the meaning of learner-centered pedagogy. The founder of learner-centered theory of education was Swiss-born French theorist J.J. Rousseau. He was the first educator to introduce the concept. In his line of thinking, the main idea is that educators should not start an instruction by concentrating on a vast amount of information that they wish students to learn. Rousseau underlined that teachers should begin an instruction by considering what the learner is capable of learning and what he or she is interested to learn. Theorists like Jean Dewey, Jean Piaget, and Lev Vygotsky, whose collective work focused on how students learn, is primarily responsible for the move to learner-centered pedagogy. Carl Roger's ideas about the formation of the individual also contributed to the growth of learner-centered pedagogy. In India, Rabindranath Tagore, Gandhiji, Gijubhai Badeka, and others focused on the need and importance of learner-centered pedagogy. Gandhiji laid stress on activity, self-reliance, and cooperation in his basic system of education. Tagore's educational concept laid emphasis on freedom of activity and self-expression of the child and direct contact with the nature. In his school, Santiniketan, he introduced fine arts, dance, drama, music, paintings, etc., and emphasized on an open model of education with classes held in the open air under the trees and the curriculum evolving around culture and natural environment and appreciating the richest aspect of other culture. Learner-centered pedagogy means inverting the traditional teacher-centered understanding of the learning process and putting students at the center of the learning processes. Learner-centered pedagogy broadly encompasses methods of teaching that shift the focus of instruction from teacher to the student. It aims to develop learner autonomy and independence by putting responsibility for the learning path in the hands of the students. Student centered instruction focuses on the skills and practices that enable lifelong learning and independent problem solving. Learner centered pedagogy theories and practice are based on the constructivist learning theory that emphasizes the learner's critical role in constructing meaning from new information and prior experiences. An approach to the teaching and learning process which supports the concept of learner as an active participant and supports the instruction additional competencies as mediator and facilitator of learning through learner support techniques and practices. This refers to the process of teaching and learning in which students are at the heart of the curriculum design, classroom interaction, and evaluation techniques. For example, students are provided choice of readings, assignments, and assessment tools in the classroom. Learner-centered pedagogy is based on the constructivist learning theory that emphasizes learners' critical role in constructing meaning from new information and prior experiences. So, for understanding the learners, let us have a discussion on the prerequisite in learner-centered pedagogy. As you know, the learner brings with him or her previous knowledge and experiences which influences classroom learning processes. In the learner-centered approaches, focus is given on developmental stages, maturity, learning strategies, prior knowledges, experiences, interest, social context, and the culture of the learner. As a teacher for implementation of the learning and learner-centered approaches, you must understand the learner and their learning styles. It is essential that you know in details the characteristic of learner in your classroom. So you have to have idea about health and physical development of learner, mental abilities, personality, learning styles, motivation, home and cultural background. So let us discuss each of these specifically. First one is health and physical development. Learners' ability to depend upon their health and physical development. As a teacher, you must take into consideration differential rates of development of learners while selecting the learning experiences. Regular medical checkup may provide some feedback to teachers about learners' physical and health status. Second is mental abilities. As teacher, you can meet the specific needs of learners by knowing their specific mental abilities, like their qualities of being able to perform, facilitating achievement or accomplishment. In general, mental abilities are considered with intelligence of a person. 7 types of intelligence have been elaborated by Howard Gardner in 1985. So let us discuss this. First one is linguistic. It enables individuals to communicate and make sure of the world through language. Then logic mathematics. It allows individuals to use abstract mathematical relations. Visual spatial. It makes possible for individuals to visualize, transform and use spatial information. Next one is bodily kinesthetic. It enables individual to use high levels of physical movement, control and expression. Next, the musical, which allows individuals to create, communicate and understand meanings made from the sound. Intrapersonal, which helps individuals to recognize and make distinction about others' feelings, intentions, and responding accordingly. One of the important point is interpersonal, which enables individuals the capacity for reflecting understanding of others and oneself. So next one is the personality aspect. Understanding the personality of the learners will help you in recognizing patterns of individual differences and in selecting the teaching learning strategies according to individual's personality and learning style. So learning style, it is the way one learns unique to himself or herself. The learning styles, depending on the learner, may have wide range of varieties. Motivation. It is related to whether the learning experiences provided to the learners match with their personality and learning styles or not. If learners are provided with learning tasks that challenges the existing skills, knowledge and understanding, then learners may feel motivated to do the task. But if the learning task provides too little or too great a challenge to the existing skills, knowledge and understanding, then learner is likely to be little interested in performing the tasks or activities. Therefore, teachers require understanding of each learner's capabilities, capacities, interest and also the subject in order to provide effective learning experiences to motivate the students. Most important is home and cultural background of students. The culture of school, home, peer and social environment as a whole influence how the child learns. The cultural influences on learning can be due to cultural experiences, the mediation of language and learning dispositions. So why make preference to learner-centered pedagogy? Let us discuss some of the rationale. Before discussing the session in detail, it might be helpful to understand the philosophical underpinnings of the learning-centered philosophy. Weimer in the year 2013 has distilled this pedagogy into 5 shifts. First one is the balance of power, the function of content, the role of the teacher, the responsibility of learning, and the purpose of evaluation. So teaching balance power. The teacher's role in traditional teacher-centered approaches is to be primary function or information giver and primary evaluator. So in traditional perspective, power is shared by faculty and students. In case of learner-centered pedagogy, teachers don't make all decisions for students without students' input. Power is usually redistributed to students in amounts proportional to their ability to handle it. Function of content. In traditional teacher-centered approaches, the lecture is the primary delivery mechanism or methodology. Lectures determines the boundary of teaching and learning. Content plays a dual function in learner-centered pedagogy, that is, establishing a knowledge base and promoting learning. In learner-centered pedagogy, the content is developed and transacted taking into account the context of the learners. So, with regard to the role of teacher in traditional teacher-centered approaches, instructors are the center of the teaching and learning processes. Students listen to the instructions and often follow the orders. Whereas in case of learner-centered pedagogy, teachers guide and facilitate learning, not forcing the learning by sometimes stepping aside from the center of classroom activities and empowering students to discover knowledge and learn from each other in an encouraging but controlled learning environment. Responsibility for learning is also another important aspect. In teacher-centered approaches, teachers are agents who deliver knowledge, while students are viewed as passive vessels, ingesting knowledge for recall and test. In learner-centered pedagogy, focus is to create environments with fewer and rules and requirements which are conducive to the learning, to encourage students to learn effectively and to support the learning efforts of others. Students are motivated to build autonomy and responsibility in learning and receive timely feedback from the faculty or teachers. With regard to Purpose and processes of evaluation. In case of traditional teacher-centric approaches, assessment is to monitor the learning. Emphasis is laid on right or correct answer. Desired learning is assessed indirectly through the user of objectively scored test. Traditional tests measure declarative knowledge, learned recitations and application to small problems. They don't necessarily address depth of understanding or the skills the students have acquired. So, opposite to this, the learner-centered pedagogy deploys a variety of assessment items. Instead of using a single grade as a sole evaluation tool, faculty should use evaluation to enhance learners' potential to promote learning and to give them opportunities to develop self and peer assessment skills. Evaluations and assessments should be less stressful and motivate students to reinforce their knowledge. The work of Edgar Dell during the 1960s argues that student-centered learning results in greater learning and retention. His cone of experiences summarizes his theory and research and is consistent with the constructivist perspective that if students are to learn, they must be actively engaged in the processes. It says that people generally remember learning activities 10% what they read, 20% what they hear, 30% what they see, half of the things which they see and hear, 70% what they say and write, and roughly 90% what they do. Doing the real things in groups help them in analyzing and reflecting on the same. So, an important goal of student-centered learning is to promote active, self-directed and lifelong learners. Student-centered approaches often work to actualize this goal by creating conditions in which students are granted a higher degree of autonomy in the classrooms. Example of teacher and student-centered pedagogies will be discussed now. So, in teacher-centered and teacher-directed pedagogies, so instructional strategies, some examples are lecture, readings, demonstration, guest speakers, drill and practice, while in other cases, in authentic learning cases, it is cooperative learning like role play, simulation, discussion, dramatization, concept maps, mind maps, like this. From the above rationale, it is clear that learner-centered pedagogy is very important to be used in today's classroom system. There are methodological and technical reasons for adopting learner-centered pedagogy in our classrooms. Let us discuss all these points. Firstly, cognitive and psychological reasons. Adopting customized and diversified instructional strategies to help learners acquire knowledge that enables higher order thinking and raising interest and motivation in a cooperative learning environment, which enables students to cope up with the ever-changing and complex local as well as global system. Second one is economic reasons. Human capital development must expand beyond the acquisition of basic skills and content knowledge to include strategies for becoming lifelong learners and create entrepreneurs in ever-changing economic environments. Then political. Learner-centered pedagogy is premised on more egalitarian power relationships between the student and their teachers. This is deemed to resist authoritarian political climates where levels of democracy and civic participation are very limited. So, central emphasis and understanding emerge from an integrated and holistic examination of the learner-centered approaches. For educational systems to serve the needs of every student, it is essential that every instructional processes focus on the individual student with an understanding of the teaching learning process. Now, let us discuss about the role of teacher in learner-centered pedagogy. In learner-centered pedagogy, as a teacher, you have to play following three critical roles. Firstly, as an observer and diagnostician of the learner, you must constantly watch the behavior and activities of the learners in and out of the classroom so as to estimate and diagnose their strengths, weaknesses, learning needs, and learning dispositions. This would help you in shaping and providing appropriate learning environments and learning activities for the learners. Secondly, you as a provider of the environment for learning, it will be helpful for the teachers. Once you diagnose the various learning needs of the learners, it becomes your primary duty to plan a learning environment that is conducive so that each learner would find enough scope and opportunities to fulfill his or her needs. Thirdly, as a facilitator of learning, you always need to look out the occasions to help the learners while they are engaged in learning. This is more challenging than directly involved in teaching process. As we know that each learner has a distinct learning style. Variation in the learning dispositions, we have to provide support at the appropriate situations during the period of learning. Friends, let us conclude the session. We have discussed concept, need and importance of learner-centered pedagogy. In the country like India, pedagogy needs to develop active learners who have acquired the skills of problem solving, independent thinking and autonomous learning, as well as the ability to work cooperatively. Therefore, teaching methods and educational goals have to be directed at producing individuals who have faith in their abilities and who will work at developing their capabilities throughout their lives. While pedagogy is a discrete part of the education, it doesn't happen in isolation from content or from educational philosophy. It influences and is influenced by the content and the topics, like teacher must ensure that pedagogy is fit with content and topics. Educational philosophy shapes pedagogy as well, and in turn, a teacher's educational philosophy might be shaped by the pedagogies he or she uses. The nature of all knowledge is fluid and not permanent. All of us know this. Responsible use of learner-centered pedagogy thus requires educationists to commit themselves to lifelong learning to improve their understanding, pedagogy of the broader processes of teaching and learning in general. Thank you for listening me. We shall meet in the second session where strategies and implementation of learner-centered pedagogy will be discussed. Thank you.